There was a time when Medal of Honor meant something. Early in the 2000s, the game was alive. It was brilliant, emotionally storytelling, authentic war settings, intense gunfights, and a level of respect for history that was rare for the games. For many of us, Medal of Honor was the war game before Call of Duty took over. It was cinematic, it was powerful, and it was consistent. Whether you were storming Normandy in Frontline or fighting through the Pacific in Rising Sun, it gave you unforgettable moments that stuck with you for years. But now, it's practically disappeared. After a disappointing pivot to modern warfare, a disastrous final mainline entry in Warfighter, a quiet VR release that barely made a ripple, Medal of Honor name is barely even whispered in the industry today. So in this video, I want to take you back through the rise, the fall, and the disappearance of one of gaming's most legendary shooter franchises. Let's figure out what really happened to Medal of Honor. Hey everyone, my name is Dynamite Harry and welcome to the channel. As I mentioned, we'll be talking about Medal of Honor. If you are a Medal of Honor fan, smash the hell out of this like button. We're aiming for 20 likes on the video. Subscribe for more gameplays and gaming opinions. We are on the route to 1.8k. And leave a comment, let me know your favourite Medal of Honor game, what you think went with Medal of Honor. Would you like to see it come back? I know I would. It's an absolutely fantastic game. And let's talk about it then. Let's get into the early glory years of the game. We're rewinding all the way back to 1999. Medal of Honor wasn't just a war game, it was a project born from the cinema. Steven Spielberg himself even brought it to life right after the work on Save It Private Ryan, and you can feel his influence from the orchestral music to the emotional tone to the way the missions played out like war movie scenes. This wasn't just a running gun action, it was immersive, it respected the subject matter. You weren't just shooting Nazis, you were part of the Allied effort. You were a silent hero helping push history forward. The original launched on PlayStation and instantly carved out a niche. It wasn't loud or bombastic like other shooters would become. It was tense, tactical, and full of character. Then came Medal of Honor Frontline, which, let's be honest, it gave us the most iconic intro to levels ever created. That beach landing, the music, the atmosphere, it felt like you were part of Saving Private Ryan. After that came Rising Sun, which switched things up by moving to the Pacific Theatre, giving us a perspective most games still ignore. It starts with you on a battleship during the attack on Pearl Harbor, and it's chaos. Explosions, smoke, shrapnel. At the time, it was unreal. Then European Assault came along, giving us that multiple perspectives and something new, something level of freedom and replayability. These weren't just clones of each other, they were ever evolving. And then Airborne, what a game that was. It tried something new. Instead of spawning at a fixed point, you literally parachuted into the missions from the skies. You picked your landing zone, decided your own route through objectives. It was innovation. The franchise had creativity, it had heart, and above all, it respected the subject matter. Medal of Honor wasn't just another shooter, it was an event every time it launched. Now, in the background here, you're seeing the latest bar the VR release, Medal of Honor game, which was Medal of Honor Warfighter. And while it was a good game, it just lacked quite a lot of stuff, and it was very, very disappointing for a Medal of Honor game, and I think this was the final nail in the coffin for Medal of Honor, unfortunately. And, you know, you can tell that it tried to shift, it tried to keep up with Call of Duty. In 2007, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4 exploded onto the scene. The entire genre changed overnight. Suddenly, gamers weren't interested in history. They wanted UAV drones, night vision goggles, modern assault rifles, high-tech military ops. World War II era started to feel stale and mainstream. Medal of Honor was at a crossroads. It tried this, it tried breaching and clearing, it tried to keep up with it. EA made that decision to pivot, and in 2010, they rebooted the series with a brand new Medal of Honor. Set in modern day Afghanistan, the game aimed for realism. It focused on the elite Tier 1 operators, took inspiration from real missions, and tried to be more grounded and respectful than the flashier Call of Duty. And while the campaign had its moments, it just didn't have the same weight. It lacked the narrative punch that the old games had. And worse, its identity was murky. It didn't know what it wanted to be. The campaign was developed by one team, while the multiplayer was handled by DICE, the creators of Battlefield. The two sides didn't mesh, and the result of a game was really disjointed, like two games glued together with no real cohesion. The tone, the pacing, even the mechanics clashed. Fans weren't sure whether the game wanted to be realistically or a military sim. COD competitor, Battlefield spin-off, it was neither. Then, just 2 years later, EA released Medal of Honor Warfighter, and this was the moment where the wheels really fell off. Warfighter tried to double down on that Tier 1 operators globe-trotting missions with gritty warfare, but it was an absolute mess. The story was convoluted, the missions felt repetitive, the AI was dumb, the bugs were everywhere, and worst of all, it was really boring. It was like they stripped away from everything that made Medal of Honor unique, and were just trying to copy COD's homework and doing it badly. Critics panned it, players abandoned it, EA admitted the game underperformed, and just like that, Medal of Honor was pulled from rotation. It wasn't on pause, it wasn't on a rework, it was dropped. EA gave no real announcement, no plans for a return. A franchise that helped define an entire genre just shelved and put in the bin, really. As you can see here, we're trying to snipe, and it just, compare it to some of the other games that come out around this, and it just looks awful for the time. It's janky, the gunplay feels weird. And I did try playing online when this game come out, and it wasn't it. It really wasn't it. They struggled, and you could tell this was like almost like them trying to throw everything to keep up with Call of Duty rather than just being Medal of Honor. If they would have stuck and said, Medal of Honor, we're doing World War II, that is our era, that is what we're sticking to, people would have played it. Look at the market at the moment. There is not a single World War II game that is really out there that's pushing people to play it. You've got your ultra realistic games that are out, and some people enjoy it, some people don't. There's not an arcadey feel World War II game anymore. And if Medal of Honor had just stuck to their guns, they'd have had the share of the market by now for that. And this is the big, big, big issue. For years, Medal of Honor went completely dark. No sequels, no remasters, no nostalgia collections. EA just let the series rot in a vault while Call of Duty went from strength to strength. Battlefield carried on, and new franchises like Titanfall and Apex Legends filled the space. Then, out of nowhere, a glimmer of hope. In 2020, EA and Respawn dropped Medal of Honor Above and Beyond, a full-fledged VR title designed exclusively for Oculus and PC VR Platinums. And there we go. There's the big killer. It was a VR title. Who saw that coming, realistically? As soon as you see Medal of Honor, you were thinking, yes, it's a Medal of Honor game. We're finally getting something awesome. We're finally getting our game back. And it just wasn't it. They brought it into VR. It was half-baked. They tried to bring the historical roots of the franchise back. There was a full single-player missions, interviews with World War II veterans, and even a documentary to fill some of the content. It did have that passion behind it, but the big problem and killer, it was VR only. And in 2020, that was still a niche. Very few people had the hardware, and even fewer people had patience to play a full-length war campaign standing up with a head face strapped to their face. For me, I struggle with VR. I wear glasses. So as soon as I saw this, I was like, well, this is not for me. And they've like alienated a lot of their player base from this. The game was bloated, massive file sizes, clunky menus, inconsistent pacing. Critics said it was more of a tech demo than a polished game. For most fans, it was a missed opportunity. For many others, it was invisible. They didn't even know it came out. So the VR release didn't bring Medal of Honor back to the mainstream. It buried it even further deeper. What should have been a triumphant return ended up being a quiet whimper. And that's the big one. They tried to bring it back and thought the best way to bring this back is with VR. Nobody plays VR anymore. There's a couple of people I watch on YouTube, and they do their own VR channels, which is fantastic. But nobody wants to play a war game in VR. It's just too much effort, too much strain on the eyes. And I think the big thing for Medal of Honor Warfighter, going back to it, is what you're about to see in the background here. It had a lot of filler missions, chase a bad guy in a car, and you're getting closer and closer and closer, and then it pulls off. And it's like, they're just putting this here to extend the campaign. It's not a Medal of Honor feel. It's just a bit of tack that they've stuck into the missions. And it just wasn't for me at all. So what really happened to Medal of Honor? Well, at its core, the franchise lost its way. It started as something bold and unique, a respectful story-driven war series that prioritized atmosphere, history, and emotional weight. But then the market changed. EA chased that trend instead of doubling down on its own strengths. It tried to beat Call of Duty in its own game rather than standing apart. And when that didn't work, it had no plan B. The modern games lacked identity. They didn't know if they wanted to be realistic, cinematic, tactical, or explosive. They couldn't decide if they were selling stories or running checklists. And gamers can feel that. We know when something's got heart or when something's just going through the motions. The sad thing is, there's still room for Medal of Honor. People want single-player war games. Look at the love for Battlefield 1 and the Battlefield 5 war stories back in the World War 1 and World War 2 genre. Look at the success of Hell Let Loose. Look at the constant calls for more historical shooters that aren't just zombie survival or run and gun chaos. Medal of Honor could have filled that space again. It had the legacy, it had the name, and it had the history. But today, unfortunately, the franchise is in limbo, forgotten by the mainstream, faintly remembered by those who grew up playing it. No remakes, no trailers, no hype, just silence. Maybe one day EA will dust it off and bring it back properly. Not as a trend chaser, not as VR novelty, but as Medal of Honor we loved. One that told powerful stories of bravery, sacrifice, and humanity. Until then, we've only got our memories to go off and some legendary campaign discs sitting on the shelf. I still own them on PS2. I still have a PS2 and go back and play Medal of Honor. I'm sure a lot of you watching this go back and play them old Medal of Honor games as well. But let me know in the comments, what's your favourite Medal of Honor game? Do you think it could ever make a comeback? This has been Dynamite Harry. Subscribe if you want more retro and revival content like this, and I'll catch you in the next one.